3.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Idiomatic Top 3.
With Nicholas, I'm the video game correspondent for Idiomatic.
And I am Dimitri, editor-in-chief of Idiomatic.com and movie critic. And what are we doing a top 3 about today?
Top 3 media that were ahead of their time, and that probably failed because of it.
Is it media or just pieces in the media as well? Because
Could be pieces in the media.
yeah, okay, because otherwise the list I prepared completely void.
Yeah, pieces in the media. That's what I meant. It's hard when you have like video games and books and stuff like that. How do you define all of that, in one word? Top 3, form of intim is also wrong.
Top 3 stuff.
Stuff that was ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And that probably failed because of it.
Yeah, no, and what we mean by that is, we use the term ahead of its time all the time just to mean it's really good.
Yeah,
Like, sort of the way people use the word transcend just to mean it's good.
I know.
If you say, like, a good movie, Gone with the Wind was ahead of its time, you're saying that when we've reached today, we have barely the technology and the know-how to pull off Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Which is like, no.
Or basically maybe that the teams and Gone with the Wings were too ahead of their time, that people didn't understand back then, but now they're relevant today,
Yeah, which is hilarious about with Gone with the Wind, which is about the South being gone with the wind.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, that would not make sense.
No, not too much. Anyway, so that's enough digression. We might as well get into the top 3 proper.
All right.
Did you like the shift of tone there?
Pretty cool.
Yeah, dogs hated it everywhere.
Nice.
So what is your number 3 for piece of entertainment that was ahead of its time?
I'm going to go with the Virtual Boy. And if you don't know what that is, well, good for you. But it was a very short-lived console from Nintendo that was basically like a giant pair of glasses that you look through, and you were supposed to get what they call virtual reality.
I'm sorry. I thought you were supposed to get an epileptic seizure.
Pretty much what you got. You got headaches is what you got. But what you basically got was a 3D view, because again, you had two different eyes that were looking in two different, tiny TVs. So you got this impression of 3D, of depth. It was terrible. Mostly because you had to stick your head into it, and there was no way, if at least they had made a way of strapping it to your head. Yeah. So you didn't have to, lay there and, have your face, next to the table playing through that. It was in two colors, red and black. Black is
is like that. If you're gonna go with a color, red is like the worst one you possibly could have picked.
Yeah,
it's the color of aggression for a reason. Like, it really resonates in our brain in a negative manner.
Yeah, blue would have been so much more calming. Maybe less headaches would have come from that. But yeah, red and black was terrible. So they really didn't have the technology to pull it off. I mean, now you look today at the 3DS. You don't even have to stick your head into anything, and you still got the 3D effect from it.
Yeah, as long as you don't move the little thing too much.
Yeah, but there's still some restrictions. And now they're working on like 3D, actually virtual reality for real with glasses that you're going to put on. And with today's level of technology, it could work fine.
Well, yeah, we've previously had on the top 3 a guest, Phil, who talked to us when he did expository dialogue about the Oculus Rift, which is like, so that's where they're headed now. And I trust the Oculus Rift a little bit more than I trusted the Virtual Boy back in the early 90s.
Yes, I know. Again, it was them experimenting, but I don't know, nothing really came of it afterwards. The 3DS uses a completely different technology. So I know Nintendo likes to experiment like that. But that was pretty much was a dead end for them.
Yeah, it's a great idea. But I think they were completely unrealistic about what they had achieved with that idea. Yeah. And I think a little bit it's their fault. Like, I think to a certain degree, like, this was the day where the top of the technology for Super Nintendo was the FX chip. FX chip. Now we've, back then, I don't know if people remember this, but the first game that came out with that was a racing game, and then Star Fox.
Yeah.
And they both looked like shit and gave you headaches.
Yeah.
Now, if that's the best you can do, is give you headaches, do you really want to stick that about 2 centimeters from your eye?
Yeah.
And I just revealed myself a Canadian. I said centimeters instead of inches. So there you go.
You revealed yourself as not an American.
No, it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. It was a good idea. It was a completely unrealistic evaluation of what they'd achieved.
Indeed. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
So what is your number 3?
My number 3 is a television show.
All right.
It's a Chris Carter television show. Chris Carter, the creator of The X-Files.
Of course.
And he created a show called Millennium starring Lance Henriksen.
He's always awesome.
He is always awesome. And he was already awesome back then. So his casting Lance Henriksen was not ahead of its time.
Okay, nice.
But him casting a movie star into a TV show was ahead of its time.
Nice.
People didn't do that. Lance Henriksen was one of the first to do that. In fact, Chris Carter had trouble sending Lance Henriksen scripts for Millennium because the agent would block it. Because he was like, my client does movies, not TVs. Stop insulting him.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because that's how it was back then. And so the way Chris Carter did it is he slipped the screenplay for the pilot of Millennium under the door of Lance Henriksen's trailer when he knew he was filming a movie in the area. And that's how Lance Henriksen got a hold of it, and he sort of looked at it, loved it, and accepted the role, even though that wasn't done before.
That's crazy.
So that's one way it's ahead of its time. But it was also a failure.
Yeah, I figured that's not why it failed, because it's Lance Henriksen, so there has to be another reason why it failed.
Yeah, no, I think Lance Henriksen is the reason why it got 3 seasons.
Nice.
But it was 3 seasons with very low ratings. And now, having said that, I love the first 2 seasons. I love them. The show is about a guy investigating serial killers, essentially is what it is. And then it goes into a little bit of supernatural stuff because he has an instinct for it, if you will.
Okay.
And he can piece together things almost like he has flash visions, but you could also argue that it's just his reasoning. So
yeah.
It's either or. And then it fell into some stuff about religious cults and blah, blah, blah.
Of course.
Which, yeah, I mean, I like the stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But here's the thing. It didn't work because it was a little bit too violent for the times. It was like we're talking about serial killers. It's really depressing. It's really intense. And of course, why I consider it ahead of its time on that level is because, well, Criminal Minds is exactly the same premise, beat for beat.
I know.
And it's on its 97th season or whatever.
Wait a second, 97, so it wasn't ahead of its time.
Exactly. It has 10 seasons per year, okay?
Yeah, okay.
But that thing will not die, And
Yeah.
then we have Hannibal, the TV show, which people are loving. Not great in the ratings, mind you, but which is about a profiler for serial killers who has this great instinct that he can piece together through empathy what the killer is thinking, which is exactly what Frank Black's doing.
Yeah.
No. I know that Hannibal is based on novels that came out before Millennium, so I'm not saying that one ripped off the other. I'm saying that people love this thing today, but didn't love it yesterday. So that's weird.
It's weird. I wonder if the time changed. I don't know why. I don't know, after 9/11 or something. That's right, I played the 9/11 card. But I don't know. You think it's just a progression of people getting more and more tolerant of about level of violence on their TV.
Yes, I think that's exactly what it is. At least partially. Okay. I think the climate during the Bush years and the people's aversion to what the U.S. was doing in Guantanamo Bay opened doors to a lot of artists wanting to talk about torture.
Okay.
And that meant that torture would appear in the media from that point on.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
And so you had a lot of movies about torture, about police brutality, all of that coming up. Horror went through a phase that people called torture porn.
Yeah.
And a lot of pundits go like, how dare the horror fans love this stuff? No, the reason why torture appeared in horror is because torture appeared in real life.
Yeah.
And people wanted to talk about it.
That makes sense.
So, but the result is that level of violence just increased in the media, in the aughts, just in one shot. And so now it's on TV.
Yeah, it's pretty much acceptable. When you talk about torture, when you kind of step down when you go to the level of serial killer, almost.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, I can see that.
So I think that's one of the reasons. The other thing about Millennium is that it was a very demanding show intellectually because every killer was a theme about a societal ill. Sort of
Okay.
like horror movies are actually. The episode names reflected like there was one that was called Beware of the Dog, and it wasn't a dog killer at all. Like that's not what it was.
Okay.
But what it was is about the false sense of security that we have about putting stickers like that on our doors,
Yeah.
and why as a society we feel like putting stickers like that. So it was really a discussion of our culture, which again is much more demanding for TV than what we were used to at the time.
Yeah.
But now, since The Sopranos, and then we had The Shield and The Wire, these shows that are very intellectually involving, and that's what people want now. Like cable shows have taken over because they discuss these things heavily, and whereas before we watched TV mostly for crap entertainment.
Yeah.
MacGyver is not a smart show. He's a smart
Bullshit.
character, but he's not. It's not in a smart show.
You need to figure out what's wrong with everything he does. That's how you watch MacGyver. So you have to think, okay?
But we didn't watch,
Yeah.
we didn't watch the A-Team because it engaged us intellectually.
Yeah.
That's not what TV was for.
Yeah, it's true.
And The Sopranos changed that, and now people are getting intellectually involved with their TV. And I think Millennium was, again, to repeat the theme of the show, ahead of its time on that.
Okay. Makes sense.
Mm.
I think it's a good thing, though, that people don't think that thinking is a chore anymore. I think it's a step towards in the right direction.
All right, well, so let's move on to number 2.
Number 2, a console that came out roughly at the same time as the Virtual Boy, the Sega CD, that basically announced it was going to have full motion video, which basically meant that you would see video on the corner of your screen with black lines through it, because that required less space to compress. That they just didn't have the capability to do that, so that already a little bit too ahead of their times. Okay, the CDs had just come out. But, I think they jumped the gun there a little too much. But I'm going to talk about one game. It's called Make My Video, which is basically you had artists that were big at the time. I think Marky Mark, Criss Cross, and CNC Music Factory, I think. And you had... yeah, they were big at the time, I know.
Yeah.
And basically what you did, you had their music and you had to make a video using images on the CD. And you think, well, that's kind of lame, but that's basically what everybody does now on YouTube with their favorite song. They have their favorite song and, I don't know, a TV show they watch, and they combine the two, and they make a clip of, the TV show with their favorite song. So that's pretty much a huge world on YouTube of people doing that, which I think is fascinating that now it's great to do, but back then, make my video, no, that's silly. Why would I want to make a video of somebody else's song? That's stupid.
Sega CD was huge on essentially integrating video into things and giving you video scenes into the video game. And, that's the precursor to cutscenes, if you will.
Yes.
And it's ahead of its time on that level as well, I find.
You're right.
Not in a good way, though, because I fucking hate cutscenes.
I don't know. Cutscenes are good, short ones.
Yeah.
Because they help move the story along. When they take too long, and you almost have to add a mini game to the cutscene, so it's so boring. It's like, that's too much. But the whole basis of Sega CD was basically cutscenes, but with humans, a lot of them Hollywood stars.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I didn't think it gelled with people. I don't think people wanted to see Hollywood stars in their game as Hollywood stars. It's just they wanted to see video game stuff. Which is weird because now you're actually scanning Hollywood stars to put them in your video game. So I guess what we want Hollywood involvement, but we don't want to see them on screen. We want to sort of see them on screen. But it was weird because after the Sega CD, that just died down completely, and it took maybe a decade for it to just start popping back up again.
I think they're too expensive.
Yeah.
I think now that video games are making enough money to justify that type of expense, they can do it again. But I think back then they realized we paid a lot of money for these stars and it didn't pay off.
Yes.
That's a considerable loss,
You're right.
But I think their mistakes was more than just people not wanting it. I think the problem is we want to see those stars into actual cinema. The thing with video games today is that they're cinematic. Those cutscenes are involving on a narrative level. I don't care for them because that's not what I go for a video game for. Because for me, what happens is that you get this involving 5-minute scenes that well, involving to a certain degree because mostly they're shittily written, but that's between you and me.
Yeah.
But even if they are at least visually involving, then it stops and there's like, oh yeah, right, I was playing something and I got to do stuff. I think it's a contrary experience. That's my opinion.
Okay.
But back then, the Sega CD, they didn't have even that. Like, they had like these amateur filmmakers. They were probably the programmers who were given a camera to supplant, and they didn't go to film school. They don't know what they're doing. It's not their fault. They're good at programming stuff. And they're like, yeah, do stuff. And I'm like, no, that's not how you film a scene, you know?
Yeah.
Say your line, and like he's speaking to the camera straight up like it's on a video phone. And it's like, yeah, that's not cinematic. That's not interesting to watch.
I guess, yeah, the production level, because they didn't know what they were doing, I guess.
Yeah.
It was all new to them. So what is your number 2?
My number 2, now I was really hesitant because in my heart, what I'm about to list as my number 2 should be the number 1.
Okay.
But, you know, we're also making a show, and the truth of the matter is, I think it would be more interesting to end on the other number 1 that I have.
That makes sense.
But I'm going to go with Lawrence Stone's The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman.
Okay.
A really long title for a book, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But that's on purpose, because the whole book is about this verbose motherfucker called Tristram Shandy who decides that I'm going to write my life.
Okay.
Starting from the beginning. And because Lawrence Stern was dying at the time.
Okay.
And it was his way of sort of trying to deal with that, the finality of death, and sort of counter it with humor, because this dude, Tristram Shandy, his character, is going, okay, well, I was born on this, da, da, da. And then, like, halfway into the first chapter, he goes like, so that's how I was conceived. I realized that I haven't even gotten to my birth, and I already have 6 months of my life that have passed, and so 6 months more that I'll have to write about. And the whole book is that joke, as that the more he goes along, the more he has to write, and it's pretty frustrating to him.
Nice.
It's hilarious, and it's full of self-referential stuff, obviously, because he keeps stopping the narrative to comment about the process of writing. You know?
Yeah, okay.
And sometimes, and the joke is that Tristram Shandy is not a very good writer.
Okay.
So sometimes he doesn't know what the words to say is, and he has a concept in his head, so he'd go like, so my uncle explained the meaning of life, and, well, imagine this line, and then you turn the page, and there's like this really squiggly line, he goes like, so that's how life goes, essentially. And you're like, that doesn't mean anything, it's hilarious.
Nice.
So the whole book is like that. There's drawings in it, and what it is, it's postmodernism. It's the idea that that the written word can't be trusted.
Okay.
And that's something to be celebrated, and that there's not necessarily such a thing as objective truth so much as there is the narrative that is our lives.
Okay.
And this book was written in 1759.
Wow.
That is a full century and a half before modernism, not postmodernism. Modernism even reared its head.
That's crazy.
And it's about 2 centuries and a half, a little bit less than that, before postmodernism really became a thing in literature. This dude was 2 centuries ahead of his time.
That's crazy. And it did get accepted, you know, was it well received by the... It didn't do badly, but if I say Lawrence Stern, Tristram Shandy, like, you as somebody, you don't go like, oh, that's a great literary classic. You don't, Yeah,
you know?
never heard of it.
Exactly. It's only now surfacing because its ideas are now being embraced in literature. So it's only now that people are sort of like, that novel got something that... But before that, it was a book that was out there.
This is just weird. I can't read this.
Yeah. I mean, like, it didn't do so badly that it got forgotten.
Okay.
People were able to dig it up, but it's now it might be studied in schools, but not before, you know.
Wow, that's crazy. I'm going to wait for the movie.
There is a movie.
Really?
There is a movie. Thank you. I was trying to segue into that, but yeah. The movie's named after one of the chapters, which is a cock and bull story.
Okay.
And when they announced it, I was like, how are you going to film this? It's impossible to film. Yeah. They found a way. They did it about the filmmaker trying to adapt Tristram Shandy to the screen, and every time he tries to do it, something goes wrong with the process itself, so he's becoming Tristram Shandy himself in his trying to adapt Tristram Shandy.
Oh, wow.
it gets the spirit of the story. Like, that's what the book is about. It gets it. It's hilarious.
That's crazy. I was joking. No, I'll watch the movie. Now I'm gonna have to watch the movie.
All right. Well, that's enough high-end literature for you guys. What is your number one pick for a piece of entertainment ahead of its time?
Well, in 1986, the Nintendo Entertainment System came out. Pretty much saved the video game, from the crash it had before.
Yeah.
And it was a great system. Unfortunately, it came with a bunch of accessories that were completely stupid.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's not that this console itself, when you bought it, you had those accessories. No. They sold them separately.
Yeah, the Power Glove and the Power Pad, who were just terrible, terrible items.
I understand the concept behind the Power Pad. Okay, ahead of its time, because we have Dance Dance Revolution today.
I know, and also just Wii Fit and stuff like that. Now it's cool to move while you're doing video games. Back then it's like, I don't want to move, I want to play a video game.
But it's more than that, though. It's that thing kept breaking. Yeah. It was a mat that you're supposed to jump on to play video games, but it wasn't solid enough to support a kid jumping on it more than a few times.
I know.
Whoops.
I know you think you're cheating when you're in a race and I'm just going to use my hand and tap on it, but that was actually the only way to extend the life of your Power Pad is to just tap on it, because if you were jumping on it, you were going to break it.
Yeah, and also it's the games. Like, part of the problem is that they had a great idea, but the game developers didn't capitalize on the idea. Like, Dance Dance Revolution gets the idea. It's like, we have them because they came up with a mat for the game instead of the other way around, mind you. But it's like, you have a mat, you want to dance on it, we'll make you dance.
Yeah.
The other one was making you do the same thing that you do on a normal controller, but except you had to do it with your legs and stuff. Like, that's not fun. That's like super frustrating.
There was a game called Dance Aerobics.
Yeah.
Actually, but it didn't have the catchy tune or anything. You were just supposed to dance to some 8-bit music, which I love 8-bit music, but I would not play that in a disco. And I would not dance to that.
One of the two that you mentioned that really mystifies me is the Power Glove.
I know. It didn't work, first of all. You needed 3 sensors you put on your TV, which they didn't add anything to attach the sensors, so basically bring out your duct tape. But after that, I don't know, I think you had to hold the glove. If you wanted it to work properly, you had to hold the glove kind of in the middle of your sensors while you turn on the power. If not, it kind of assumed that the glove was like either too high or too low, and your character just kept ducking or jumping or something stupid like that. You had to control your A and your B by moving your fingers somehow. It was different for every game. Sometimes it made sense. If you want to play Punch-Out, you want to be punching them. So, you had different things. But to a certain degree, something universal would have been great, for most games. But it didn't. So it was just really, really weird. But you have the Wii controller now.
Yeah, it is the precursor to that.
It is the precursor to that.
It's fascinating how Nintendo never gives up on its ideas.
That's true.
Because, like you said, the Power Glove, that's totally what the Wiimote is.
Yeah.
And the pad, that actually came before anything that the Wii did, but they did it with the Wii anyway.
Yeah.
But the GameCube had the connector to the Game Boy Advance so that you can look at the big screen and look at the small screen at the same time, and now they have the Wii U. Yeah. Like, they don't give up on their ideas. They just, like, when an idea doesn't work, because, like, the Game Boy Advance, GameCube Advance didn't work.
They didn't have enough games, I think, to support it.
Yeah, exactly. Commercially, it didn't work.
Yeah.
It worked technologically fine. It worked fine, but it's just like, you need to buy both, and there's 2 games for it. Why would you do that?
Exactly.
But instead of going like, well, that didn't work, we'll never try that again, they assume that, no, it's the climate was wrong and the technology was wrong, and there's a way we can fine-tune it to make it work.
Yeah.
Which is, granted, the Wii U's not selling as well as they had hoped, but still, like, it's intriguing that they don't give up on their ideas.
I know. So what is your number one?
My number one is a movie, so we covered the whole spectrum of what we cover on the site this week.
Mostly thanks to you, because I just went for video games, so it's all good.
Well, you are the video game correspondent, so,
I did the console, games, and accessories, so I did all 3.
So, the movie I'm talking about is a movie that is actually cherished today by a lot of people, which I'm not surprised, but at the time, everybody said it sucked, and it sucked monkey balls.
Okay.
And that's Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers.
Really?
It came out in 1997, and people went to see it expecting this big sort of Star Wars type thing.
Yeah.
Or Aliens type thing, actually.
Makes sense, yeah.
And, that's not what they got. Paul Verhoeven, for those of you who don't know, is the man behind RoboCop, not the remake, the original.
Yes.
And anybody who's seen that movie knows that he has a wickedly weird sense of humor.
I know. I mean, RoboCop is not as much about action as it is about the humor in there, You build that ultimate machine to this is going to be the ED-2000. It's going to, it can't even go downstairs. Your super machine. So it's like, yep, those are bureaucrats at work. I can totally see that. So it's all about humor. A lot more than it is about the action, really.
I agree. And the humor is satirical. It's all about making fun of current society and excesses of our current society. Yeah. And he did the same thing with Starship Troopers. The Starship Troopers is actually based on a book, a very popular book. If you're wondering what the book is like, James Cameron's in Aliens. That's what the book is like.
Okay.
That's pretty much exact. In fact, the author, before Starship Troopers came out, was like, well, do you think they'll ever adapt your book into a movie? And he answered, they did. It was called Aliens. I didn't get any rights for it, but it's the same fucking thing.
Nice.
So, Paul Verhoeven takes the book and adapts it, and naturally people assumed it was going to be like Aliens because that's what the book is like. Yeah. But he injected his humor in it.
Nice.
Aliens, if you've seen it, Starship Troopers, if you've read it, it's all about military culture. It's about a society where they send kids to military school really early to fight a war. Yeah. Sort of like Ender's Game, actually. But except instead of training them to be commanders, they're training them to be cannon fodder.
Pretty much,
essentially. Yeah. And the society is treated really straight in the book. But Paul Verhoeven must have read the book and went like, well, that's stupid. Like, that's a horrible society. And so decided to make a satire about war propaganda, about how rah, name the country of your choice, leads you into this sort of blinding conflict where you don't even know what you're fighting. You don't even truly know what you're fighting for. Mm-hmm. And every piece of information can be twisted into a sense of victory, even though clearly you've lost.
I wonder why that became popular in the 2000s.
Exactly. Nobody would have shat on that movie if it had come during the Bush years. No one. I'm sure
Republicans would have.
Yeah, exactly. Republicans would have been, but they wouldn't have been like, "Oh, that movie's dumb." They would have been, "How dare that movie?"
Yeah,
which is sort of the reaction Paul Verhoeven would have wanted anyway.
Much. Yeah.
And for those of you who haven't seen it, man, that movie, there's some bits that are so freaking astute and hilarious.
I love the humor in RoboCop, so yeah, I'm totally gonna go watch that.
Oh no, you have to. Because like RoboCop, it has even the commercial bits, but instead of being commercials about products, because RoboCop is about hyper-corporatism, this one's about government intervention and war propaganda. So all the commercials are war propaganda, and they're all as stupid as the commercials in RoboCop. This movie's fantastic. It has Neil Patrick Harris doing the propaganda. It's hilarious.
Nice.
Neil Patrick Harris before he was like...
he was awesome, yeah.
On that note, if you want to share with us some of your picks for stuff that was ahead of their time, please write us at mail@idiomatic.com or post a comment at idiomatic.com. Just click on the episode name. We're also on Facebook, we're also on Twitter, we're also on iTunes. If you could write us a review or like us on Facebook, that would be really appreciated. It helps us get the support to continue generating content for you on a regular basis.
Indeed.
See you next time.
Also wrong.
Top 3 stuff
that was ahead of their time. Yeah. And that probably failed because of it.
Yeah, no, and what we mean by that is, we use the term ahead of its time all the time just to mean it's really good.
Yeah.
Like, sort of the way people use the word transcend just to mean it's good.
I know.
If you say, like, a good movie, Gone with the Wind was ahead of its time, you're saying that when we've reached today, we have barely the technology and the know-how to pull off Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Which is like, no.
Or basically maybe that the teams and Gone with the Wind were too ahead of their time, that people didn't understand back then, but now they're relevant today,
Yeah, which is hilarious about with Gone with the Wind, which is about the South.
But what you basically got was a 3D view, because again, you had two different eyes that were looking in two different, tiny TVs. So you got this impression of 3D, of depth. It was terrible. Mostly because you had to stick your head into it, and there was no way, if at least they had made a way of strapping it to your head. Yeah. So you didn't have to, lay there and, have your face, next to the table playing through that. It was in two colors, red and black. Black is
is like that. If you're gonna go with a color, red is like the worst one you possibly could have picked. Yeah. It's the color of aggression for a reason. Like, it really resonates in our brain in a negative manner.
Yeah. Blue would have been so much more calming. Maybe less headaches would have come from that.
Being gone with the wind.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, that would not make sense.
No, not too much. Anyway, so that's enough digression. We might as well get into the top 3 proper.
All right.
Did you like the shift of tone there?
Pretty cool.
Yeah, dogs hated it everywhere.
Nice.
So what is your number 3 for piece of entertainment that was ahead of its time?
I'm going to go with the Virtual Boy. And if you don't know what that is, well, good for you. But it was a very short-lived console from Nintendo that was basically like a giant pair of glasses that you look through, and you were supposed to get what they call virtual reality.
I'm sorry. I thought you were supposed to get an epileptic seizure.
Pretty much what you got. You got headaches is what you got. But 2, 3.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Idiomatic Top 3.
With Nicholas, I'm the video game correspondent for Idiomatic.
And I am Dimitri, editor-in-chief of Idiomatic.com and movie critic. And what are we doing a top 3 about today?
Top 3 media that were ahead of their time, and that probably failed because of it.
Is it media or just pieces in the media as well? Because
could be pieces in the media.
Yeah, okay, because otherwise the list I prepared completely void.
Yeah, pieces in the media. That's what I meant. It's hard when you have like video games and books and stuff like that. How do you define all of that, in one word? Top 3 form of intimism. But yeah, red and black was terrible. So they really didn't have the technology to pull it off. I mean, now you look today at the 3DS, you don't even have to stick your head into anything, and you still got the 3D effect from it.
Yeah, as long as you don't move the little thing too much.
Yeah, but there's still some restrictions. And now they're working on like 3D, actually virtual reality for real with glasses that you're going to put on. And with today's level of technology, it could work fine.
Well, yeah, we've previously had on the top 3 a guest, Phil, who talked to us when he did expository dialogue about the Oculus Rift, which is like, so that's where they're headed now. And I trust the Oculus Rift a little bit more than I trusted the Virtual Boy back in the early 90s.
Yes, I know.